I highlighted 9 lies about eugenics. Obviously there are much more than 9 points, but the rest is for a later post.
Below are the 9 points. 1 degree eugenicists are Nazis. This is perhaps the biggest lie ever told about eugenics. Far from being Nazi, it was based on racial improvement, not on the extermination of any people considered inferior.
An example that illustrates the point is the eugenicist Lothrop Stoddard, who was anti-Nazi and eugenicist.
2 degrees eugenics is social Darwinist. One of the founders of social Darwinism is Herbert Spencer, who wanted to apply natural selection to society. Eugenics, with the exception of neo-Darwinists, has an intellectual basis in Darwin, but follows a different path from Spencer, as it advocates the artificial selection of the most brilliant of the nation/race, so that they generate future statesmen, scientists of high caliber, etc. 3 degrees eugenicists advocated a pure European race, free from any racial mixture. In the book The Racial Elements in European History, by Hans F. K. Günther, a German eugenicist, the issue of racial mixing of Slavs with Asians, and of Mediterraneans, such as South Italians, is discussed, the latter having a portion of African blood in their veins.
Therefore, another myth debunked. 4 degrees eugenics served to justify European colonialism. Currently, many books and articles written on the subject of this essay cite as a basis for supporting this 4th myth, Rudyard Kipling's poem, The White Man's Burden, poetry that consists of saying that the white man's burden was to civilize the world, not white.
Eugenicists thought only about the improvement of the white race. North American eugenicists treated the black issue as an internal problem, which should be resolved with the repatriation of black people back to Africa. A great example of this is Senator Theodore Bilbo, creator of the Great Liberia Bill, a project to repatriate African Americans back to their continent of origin. 5 degrees eugenics is equal to genocide. This point is in line with the first myth, which racial egalitarians forget to say, that all science can be used beneficially or harmfully. For example, physics was used to build the atomic bomb, a weapon that if used systematically could end the stay of human beings on Earth. However, no one would be so obtuse as to propose the abolition of physics. However, they did this with eugenic science, which only has the ideal of racial improvement.
Genocide is not consistent with the practice of this science.
6 degrees eugenicists only admitted dolichocephalic whites. The famous experiment by Franz Boas, which intended to refute eugenics, measured the skulls of mixed-race people and demonstrated that many of them had dolichocephaly, which in theory went against eugenics.
This experiment, starting from a wrong premise, led to a wrong conclusion.
Isaac Taylor, an English eugenicist, had detected dolichocephaly in black people. Another example, the Alpine race is brachycephalic, and Alpines are Europeans, so Boas's experiment proved nothing, just that he was a sycophant. 7 degrees the eugenicist white man thought of himself as the universal, or the normal. Lothrop Stoddard, in his book The Rising Tide of Color Against the White World's Supremacy, shows that in his time, there was a ratio of 3 non-whites to 1 white in the world.
When eugenicists called black people people of color, the expression implied that the color was dark.
8 degrees eugenics was classist. Eugenicist analyses showed that the superior man, if born into a lower class, ascended to the highest class, but this did not mean that rich people belonged to the well-born lineage. Quite the contrary. In the studies cited by Stoddard, it was demonstrated that a good portion of the rich were mediocre.
9 degrees eugenicists were stupid. This is the coup de grace, the most false argument against eugenics.
Eugenicists were the most brilliant people of their time. See Henry Fairfield Osborn, discoverer of Tyrannosaurus and Velociraptor. David Starr Jordan, greatest ichthyologist of his time.
Havelock Ellis, a high-caliber psychologist, whose theory of sexuality influenced Sigmund Freud.
Francis Galton, creator of eugenic science and inventor, whose inventions in meteorology and heredity studies are used to this day, with the obvious exception of his science, eugenics.
Carl Pearson, statistical genius, was a disciple of Galton and a eugenicist.